Now, Emma, there's a story that I was going to headline that, in fact, we will just discuss now, and we should start by playing this clip, which has been cited in a piece by Jane Mayer in the New Yorker magazine. This is Dianne Feinstein as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, questioning Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter. This was back on November 17th.
On November 7, President Trump tweeted, and I quote, "I won this election by a lot," end quote. Obviously, that's not true. Do you believe that label goes far enough to prevent the tweet's harms when the tweet is still visible and not accurate? Well, let me give you a specific. On November 7, President Trump tweeted this: "I won this election by a lot." Does that label do enough to prevent the tweet's harms when the tweet is still visible and is not accurate? On November 7, President Trump tweeted, and I quote, on November 7, President Trump tweeted this.
So what it is, and at the time, I don't know how much attention it got. It got some attention in right-wing circles, apparently. But Dianne Feinstein, as the chair of the Judiciary Committee, was asking the exact same question back to back. And apparently, this was the basis of this Jane Mayer story, where which talks about how Chuck Schumer had to approach her at that point and ask her to step down from the Judiciary Committee. And she had forgotten the conversation the first time around. They actually had to have it twice. And apparently, this has been an open secret this is according to Jane Mayer's reporting, within the halls of the Senate for years, that there has been serious cognitive decline on behalf of Senator Feinstein. And, let me just say this, I am very sensitive to this issue. I have had to personally deal with these issues. But there is a fundamentally different perspective here, or I should say implications here, when you have someone, in your personal life or whatever, or even maybe in your institution, and it's a very sensitive issue. And how do you start to ask people to maybe step back a little bit? But there are 100 senators who have an incredible amount of control over the destiny of hundreds of millions of Americans. And we were very critical of Dianne Feinstein in the Amy Coney Barrett hearings. They were a disaster. Amy Coney Barrett came out of those hearings more popular than she went in. I may have undermined the Senate races in South Carolina. It's very difficult to tell. But the point is that this is a massive failure of leadership. She ran for re-election in 2018, and the California State Democratic Party did not endorse her.
Right. And I think Obama did endorse her, though. And the rest of the Senate was on board. And it is clear through Jane Mayer's piece, and she's a wonderful reporter, that these issues have been going on for multiple years in terms of the apparent cognitive decline. And of course, this is immensely sad, and you don't want to see anyone going through this. But Dianne Feinstein's 87 years old, and the tales told by Jane Mayer and recounted to her by these sources are just jarring about how they tried to get her husband involved, how Chuck Schumer had to have multiple painful conversations with her that she'd later forget. And so he would have to do it over again. And they described it as Groundhog Day, where she was unable to recall those conversations and would be frustrated, lost in the details of the briefings that were provided to her by her staff. So Mayer wrote this piece very delicately, and I think that was the appropriate touch to address this kind of conversation. But the deeper topic is exactly what you're talking about, Sam, that leadership should have intervened faster if they were more interested in being
well, that's what leadership
potent,
is.
Right. And the fact that she was the head of this committee, this extremely important, visible committee for that long, that's a whole separate issue as well.
Now, look, there's obviously these people are elected by the citizenry. There's only so much that someone like Chuck Schumer could have done, but I can come up with a couple of major ones. One, he could have said, we can't support your candidacy. We're going to support your primary challenger, or I should say, not even a primary challenger. In California, they have what is known as a jungle primary. So she was actually facing a Democrat in the general election, De Leon, who was I believe, the Speaker of the California Assembly.
Right.
But he could have also said at that time, we're going to take your chairmanship away and from the Judiciary Committee. The idea that there was no exercise of leadership here is disturbing, not only in the context of Dianne Feinstein, but how are we as citizens, how are Democrats supposed to be confident in their leadership if they have already proven that you can get to this point where the only way that there's going to be some type of action, and maybe there won't be any, on this situation with Dianne Feinstein is for people to actually have to go. And I imagine there's a lot of people who there went on last resort to go and talk to a reporter to get this story out in the New Yorker, because leadership seems completely incapable of dealing or even attempting to deal with this problem. It's really disturbing. It's something that we're going to end up talking about more in the future, I have no doubt.